John Kennedy is our person that is responsible for speakers. And he is happy because this is his topic and we so need to be focused in on it. So I'm turning it over to you, John.
Yes, good afternoon. This is the third in a series of what may eventually be 4 programs. We've had Dan Hunter and we've had Kate Summers and the next program sometime in the future will be something I present on a book called Under a White Sky. But today it's very exciting. We're having Tara Zrinski, and she's an old friend, but I'm going to read a little bit about her bio. She is a council member of the Northampton County. She holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy and English from Drew University and a master's degree in theological studies and pastoral counseling from Moravian Theological Seminary. She is currently an adjunct professor at Lehigh Carbon Community College, Northampton County Community College, and Lehigh University, and works as a solar energy consultant for SunPulse Solar. And she was instrumental in helping us get our solar panels set up at the Someday Cafe as we hired SunPulse Solar to do the work. She was born and raised in Bethlehem Township and currently lives in Hanover Township and has 3 boys that keep her busy, as well as her work for SunPulse Solar and being on the council. I mentioned all that, she's a busy person. Tara serves in a number, in addition, Tara serves in a number of organizations that focus on environmentalism and climate action. She was local coordinator for Food and Water Watch, is liaison to the Farmland Preservation Board, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Advisory Council, and Karst Geological Advisory Council. And she sits on the board of the Wildlands Conservancy Conservation District and on the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority. She chairs the Northampton County Energy, Environmental, and Land Use Committee and was instructional in the creation of an ad hoc committee to promote the production, manufacturing, and processing of industrial hemp. So she has many different interests. In addition to her service to Northampton County, Tara is an author and illustrator. Her work includes All Ducks Are Birds, but not all birds are ducks. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Tara is running for re-election on the Northampton County Council. I don't know if that comes up backwards, but that's the re-election sign. And Lamont LeClure, the county executive, has said Tara is the environmental conscience of Northampton County. And I think that's absolutely, completely true, judging from her work. And I said, we've known each other for quite a while, and it's a real pleasure to have you here today, Tara.
I just want to say thank you for that introduction. That was really good. When you hear about the totality of what I'm actually doing, I think, wow, that is a lot. But I'm going to share my screen because I have a PowerPoint that I made specifically for this. If I can do that.
You should be able to, your co-host.
Did I do it?
Yep.
I did it. Okay, let's see if I can. Okay, so I do wear many hats in the county and in my life. I'm an educator, I'm an organizer, I'm an energy consultant, and I am an elected official. These are two of my three children. That is Brighton on the left-hand side. He's my oldest son. He is at Washington and Jefferson in college right now. My youngest son is to the right as I'm facing this, and he goes to Nichman now. He's in the 6th grade. And my other son is in the Marines. He's stationed in Hawaii right now. So I have made it my mission in life really to bring environmental issues to the forefront. It's my passion, and it's definitely my purpose. And you can see this is just the view from the Hanover Township Community Center Park, and you can see the solar in the background. It is something up and coming. As we approach Earth Day, which is tomorrow, the theme is Restore the Earth. So it's about restoration. And I feel like part of the recognition of nature's importance and the role of the environment in everything that we do is part of restoring balance to meeting our own human needs and also maintaining the sustainability of the planet. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got where I'm at, because it was a little bit of a convoluted tour. I did have a study abroad when I was at Drew University, and I went to the rainforest in Costa Rica, and I studied sustainable development and ecotourism. And one of the most important events, I think, in my life was when I went into the rainforest and you saw lots of mud and lots of stumps, and you're going in on a cart. You know, all of us students were sitting in the back of a cart and a tractor was pulling us. And we went into the rainforest, and it's beautiful and it's lush, and we stayed there for a week or two in what could have been like a treehouse in the canopy. And it was just an amazing experience to like breathe in that moist air and see all the flora and fauna and all the diversity of animals and birds and butterflies and everything. It was amazing. So when we came out of the rainforest, it was kind of like hitting a wall, realizing that that whole part that we came into the rainforest seeing, the stumps and the mud and everything else where they had clear cut, that was the forest that we were in being clear cut to make grazing land for cows. And that beef was being shipped to the United States. And right then and there, I felt like we really need to do something, not only in our own country, but we need to make it so that the environment is something that's of global importance. And now we see Costa Rica is almost 100% renewable energy. They have sustainable development there. And it's really amazing to see how far they've come in only 25 years. And it gives me hope that in our own country, we can do many of the same things. But right here in Pennsylvania, one of the things that I did was, one of the hats that I wore was I did blogging and journalism. And I wrote for shalereporter.com for about 3 or 4 years on the fracking industry and pipeline infrastructure build out in Pennsylvania during the boom from 2000. It was from 2009, I started in 2010 to about 2014. I met people like Bill McKibben and James Hansen, Dr. James Hansen, Dr. Michael Mann, and these are people who are on the forefront of climate action and climatology and sustainability. And fracking, when you realize where that fracked gas is coming from, because not many of us do, because we turn on our stove and the gas comes out and we love cooking with it, and we love the heat that it gives us because it seems so much better than just oil or coal because it burns cleaner. But at the same time, it's 80% more potent a greenhouse gas. And when you go and you see a frack site, you realize how devastating it is to the land and to the people around it. I toured Montrose, Pennsylvania, And I saw the people there whose homes were leveled and they can't live in them now. And now they're living in Florida with a gag order because Cabot Industries has told them that they can't talk about how their land was contaminated. So when you see the industry, you kind of want to do something about it. And this is a pretty old slide, but it shows the difference in carbon, CO2, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. In about 2014, it was 404 parts per million. It now sits at 415 parts per million. So we can see there's an exponential transition and escalation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And that's one of the most potent greenhouse gases that creates this climate warming. And it's not just about climate and global warming. It's about the rapid transition of weather patterns that are occurring and the devastating natural disasters that are going to be a consequence that we're going to see in the future. Consequences from ocean acidification, the warming of the oceans, which kills off the fish and the coral and everything else. And then also the range of weather patterns that we see. One day it's like freezing, the next day it's 80 degrees. These fluctuations are because the Earth is off balance, because there's too much carbon in the atmosphere. So I joined Food and Water Watch. I was part of the clean energy revolution. I talked about infrastructure, which is the pipelines that allow fracking to continue, because we have a pipeline in our backyard, not in my backyard, but in Northampton County's backyard. It's called the Penny's Pipeline. And that pipeline is going to be used to export natural gas. But at the same time, it's taking up people's farmland, people's homes, and also historic properties that we can't protect because of eminent domain. And so that's all going to profits of corporations, and we're not even benefiting from the natural resource that we're selling off to other countries. So to me, that is something that we need to be vigilant about. It's something, as you can see from all the different pictures, I've fought in many different places. I've given speeches about it. I've given rallies. I went to Harrisburg. I marched in New York. I marched on the Penny's Pipeline, literally at Jeff Porter's property right outside of it. And I'm a huge advocate for farming. Because a lot of the farms are being fracked, and that is going into our food and our water. And we have to think about what are the long-term effects of this, because it's not just about the natural gas. It's not just about methane. It's about the 700 or 800 different proprietary chemicals that they use in fracking fluid that also contaminate groundwater. So they call these people the sacrifice zone. We went to Tom Wolf's office and we gave him 10,000 signatures to talk about banning fracking, or at least putting a moratorium on it. And you've heard him say a couple times that, yeah, he's thinking about it, but he wants to tax the natural gas first. 8 years have gone by and he has not gotten a severance tax. And instead, we have more build out and more dependence on natural gas in this state than we had before, because now we're going to get 3 cracker plants. And if you don't know what a cracker plant is, it's where they crack the gas that comes out of the ground into like ethane, butane, methane, all the different types, kerosene, whatever, the different types of gas that you can put and utilize. And part of that gas is going to go to ethylene propylene, is going to go to manufacturing plastic products and plastic bags. So you can see that there are, this little boy, I actually wrote a story about him. His name's Adam. His parents, who are to the right, not Mark Ruffalo, to the right of him, allowed him to play in a frack pond, because they didn't know, because the landman, when he came to their home, said, this is perfectly normal, this is safe, perfectly safe. And he got rashes all over his body. And he got very sick. And the natural gas company wouldn't do anything because you can't tie the chemicals to the symptoms that he was having, because we don't know what those proprietary chemicals are and they don't have to disclose them. So that puts us at a real disadvantage in this state. And so he is part of what we call the sacrifice zone, that we sacrifice families, farms, children to this natural gas infrastructure in the way that we're doing it now. And they might find safer ways to do it, but they haven't exactly found them yet. And it's kind of like unethical to experiment on people with whatever chemicals you're using till you find the right concoction that's actually safe for the environment. But again, we're still fighting. I'm still educating people, talking about the Penny's pipeline, talking about the process of FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And we actually have a moratorium on fracking in the Delaware River Basin right now that a lot of us have been fighting for 4 or 5 years to maintain that. We're also fighting for more transparency with FERC, because it used to be that when you had a public hearing, you would actually go to a public place where you were discussing your experience with whatever you were commenting on, or whatever your comment was, and other people got to hear it. Now what they do is they sequester you in a small little room and they tape your recording and no one else ever hears it. And it's not a public forum anymore. So there's so many different ways that FERC has really helped the industry grow and maintain the lack of transparency to the public. And at the same time, this is supposed to be for public use and benefit. So we deserve those kind of things. So anyway, this brings me to why I'm a county council a county council member, because if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're on the menu. So I wanted to be in a place where I could influence public policy and also make things happen. And I ran, and obviously I won. I'm running again because I'm just not done. These are, John has told you all the things that I do in the county, and I mean, this is a list of them. I have tried as hard as I can to make sure that the committees and the boards that I sit on, I attend and I participate, and then I go beyond that. And I actually, when I was researching industrial hemp, I toured the whole, like, Pennsylvania, like going to Lancaster, going to different farms, going to different expos and places to find out what you can do with hemp, how it can be used here, what are the regulations of it. And what's interesting is that at Lehigh University, they're actually learning right now different ways to apply industrial uses for hemp to replace plastic products. So this is all very connected with plastic, the reduction of plastic, and the transition from the dependency on fossil fuels to renewable energy, which kind of brings us to solar in a way, because I think that's what John wanted me to talk about, but it's all a convoluted path. And I'll just kind of skip to that. But these are some of the solar bills that are kind of stalled at the state level. It's what makes solar in Pennsylvania so difficult, because in other states, they have incentives like $3,000 or $5,000 up front to go solar. And I'm sure everybody has seen the ads where it says, go solar in Pennsylvania for no cost at all, or for free. I'm sure everybody has seen them, but they're just an advertising gimmick that you should not fall for, because what they're going to do is sell you what's called a power production agreement or a power purchase agreement. They're going to put the solar on your home for free, sure, but you're going to pay them per month. And they're not renting your roof. You're paying them to utilize them to generate your energy, and then they're selling it back to you. So while you might spend like 11 or 12 cents
per kilowatt hour on your energy, like from PPL or MET-Ed. If you look at the bill, you look at the transmission, generation, and distribution, and you add up those costs, and that's how you get the 11 or 12 cents, and it might be a little bit more if you have a third-party provider. But they'll sell you that power purchase agreement, and they'll say, we will sell your energy back to you for 11 cents. And then they'll put you on what's called an escalator. And every year, you're safe from your from the escalation of costs. It only escalates 2.9% every year. But in the state of Pennsylvania, our energy costs have been quite levelized. And so it's difficult to say that your costs aren't going to be less than 2.9%. So some of these laws, like the solar energy sales tax exemption, the credit legislation, removing obstacles for residential solar, community solar, these are some things that would actually benefit residential solar, but that we can't get past. We haven't even, in the state of Pennsylvania, you are not allowed to put solar on a preserved farmland either. You are allowed to mine or frack or drill for oil on any of those preserved farms, but you cannot put solar or wind. How interesting. So most recently though, Senator Mario Scavello has introduced or reintroduced community solar legislation. And we recently had somebody from the DEP come in and discuss that. His name is Robert Young. He gave a whole entire presentation, and I won't go into it because you could actually go back and see the presentation from our Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee. And basically, there are a number of community solar projects that are going to go in. But first, I just want to tell you a little bit about the other incentives that are involved in solar. And the reason why that power purchase agreement isn't a good idea if you do decide ever to go into solar, just so you understand it. The power purchase agreement locks you into a cost for the next 20 years. But when you purchase your solar, you actually get a 26% federal tax credit, which is an incentive tax credit that's leveraged against your tax liability from the federal government. So 26% of your system cost comes back to you. Also, in the state of Pennsylvania, you can see that these are what are called SRECs. So let's just say you have a 10 kilowatt system on your roof. You're going to get 10 SRECs, solar renewable energy certificates, per year. And those solar renewable energy certificates are traded on what's called the SREC market. And you get a certain amount of money for each of those as they come up. So in the state of Pennsylvania right now, those SREC credits are worth $33. About 5 or 6 years ago, those SREC credits were worth $300 and $400. And the reason why they're not worth a whole lot right now is because our renewable energy portfolio standards, the standards by which we say how much energy needs to be generated in the state by renewable sources, that is hydro, solar, wind, and geothermal. Our renewable portfolio standards are almost full, and even so, that's what makes the credits not that high. So what happens is you get $33. So if you have a 10 kilowatt system, that's $330 a year. It's still a little bit of an incentive, and you get that for 15 years. So these are some of the incentives that you get back for your system that make purchasing your system and generating the energy yourself more like farming instead of going to a third party to purchase your energy. And so how does solar work? Solar works, obviously, there's photovoltaic cells inside the panels that capture the sun, they circulate electrons, and they generate energy. The DC goes into the inverter and is converted to AC, which is usable in your home. The extra energy goes into the grid, which is called net metering. And because we have net metering in this state is why we can have solar at all. Because if you didn't have net metering, all your energy would go back into the grid and you would not get compensated for it at all. So essentially what net metering does, it allows the grid to be your battery storage. So your energy is stored inside the grid until you want to utilize it, because you're generating all your energy during the day. You might not be using it all during the day, probably using most of it at night when you're home, or when your lights are on, or TV, or whatever it is. Now we're all using energy at all times of the day because we're all home for a long time, but the energy grid is your storage battery. And so the energy flows out and it flows back in. So even though you're generating solar energy, your house might not be generating, your house might not be operating on 100% solar, because what you're doing is you're sending more renewable energy back into the grid and it's pooled there with other resources. So the energy you get back out from the grid is always a pooled source of energy. And that energy is generated from a number of different sources. You can see how much natural gas is. Natural gas makes up 36%. You also have nuclear, which used to be 45% of our energy and is now 39% due to the decommissioning of two slated, well, TMI and Peach Bottom are slated to be decommissioned. So they're not producing as much. And because even though nuclear energy is zero emissions, it has the notion that it's very dangerous. People don't like living next to nuclear facilities, oddly. But our carbon emissions, and without those two facilities, we leave the door wide open for more fossil fuel generation in this state, and therefore more CO2 emissions, more fossil fuel. And until our portfolio standards expand, and those are the orange, the red, and the purple, you see they only make a very small sliver of the pie in Pennsylvania. So what we need to do is, and they tried to do this last year, was expand the renewable energy portfolio standards. They tried to expand them, but that legislation was cut down as well. So now the goal is 11% by 2030. We're currently at about 5% renewable energy. And all of those renewable energy certificates and that capacity is actually already compensated for by the number of grid scale projects in the works. There are 3 grid scale projects, and Rob Young from the DEP discussed this the last time at the EELU meeting. There are 3 grid scale projects that's anything over, I think it's like a gigawatt or megawatt it is. It's a megawatt. So that's like 100,000 kilowatt hours. So that is in Lower Mount Bethel, that 3 of those projects are in the works. But they have not, they're in various stages of of approval. There are 90 some different projects all over this state that are grid scale that are going to fill that renewable energy portfolio standard. So I don't anticipate, unless we increase that renewable portfolio standard, that those SREC credits are going to go up. So that's why I'm showing you that, because that's what makes solar possible for residential owners, is the incentive tax credit and also the SREC credits that you have for 15 years. At the same time, renewable energy and green, they create lots of different jobs. If we would join the RGGI, I'm sorry, we would actually create 25,000 jobs in the state of Pennsylvania that would be livable wage. That's kind of important now that we're seeing a lot of different jobs, and a lot of these don't require degrees. You might have an associate's degree, you might have a bachelor's degree, but you might just have a high school diploma. And so I did want to talk a little bit about solar, but I also want to talk a little bit about the other things that are happening in the county. And one of them is the importance of recycling. Since we're talking about Earth Day, we're talking about fossil fuels, and it is related to plastic. We have so much plastic that we throw out. We are a single stream recycling community. Everything goes in the same stream. We only recycle about 9% of whatever goes into the can in the state of Pennsylvania. The other 90-some% goes to landfills. And you can see the landfills expanding. If you've been along 78 and you go to Kryn, you know that, I know when I was a kid, that was a little speck on the mountain. And now it's the whole entire mountain. If you go to Penn Argyl and you see waste management, they're trying to expand. And as somebody who is on the Solid Waste Advisory Council, I saw firsthand that many of these DEP regulated landfills are reaching capacity, and they're going to have to be granted expansion rights, which means taking up more land for our trash. Not only that, but we take in trash from New Jersey and New York because it's part of a larger law that has to do with commerce that says that we have to take it. And I could explain that in more depth, but just for this purposes, we won't. So our recycling basically is going to landfills, and what we need to do is reduce it. China isn't taking our recycling anymore. We used to put it on big barges and ship it out to them. They're not taking it. Other countries aren't taking it. So we're going to have a huge plastic problem. And the fact that Pennsylvania is tying a couple thousand jobs to a market that's going to create plastic bags and plastic products for the next 25 years is kind of appalling to think that this is where our future is in Pennsylvania at a time when we should be reducing our plastic use. So I'm sure if any of you have Netflix, you've seen Seaspiracies. It's a crazy, really depressing film about what's happening with all the plastic in our oceans. Some of that is our responsibility. And if something is our responsibility, we can do what we can to reduce it. One of the things that we have tried to do is pass an ordinance or a resolution. And I've gone around to different municipalities and different EACs, environmental action committees, discussing plastic bans. They sound very like, what could this possibly do? But it actually does a lot because it's millions, billions of pounds of plastic per year that are going into landfills and going into the oceans. And with that one single thing, I think someone said it at the beginning of this discussion, that sometimes it's the small things that one person can do that make the difference. This is one small thing that every person can do is reduce their plastic. Taking bags, your own reusable bags to the store, deciding not to use a straw, deciding not to use takeout containers, bringing your own glass takeout containers, reusing the glass containers that you buy as consumer products. Finding, for us in legislature, we have to find ways for manufacturers to make products out of different and more reusable products. A bottle made out of hemp will biodegrade in 80 days. That plastic bag is going to be with us for hundreds of years. And when it does break down, it's going to turn into microplastics. Right now, microplastics in fish, in animals, that's the food we eat, in the ground, in groundwater, is polluting everything, including us. It's a major cause of inflammation and airway blockage, like breathing in animals, and also it creates respiratory problems in human beings too, among other things. So these are just little things that we're trying to do at the county that actually go into bigger things. And if you talk to consumers and the people who manufacture, there are landfills, recycling programs who actually want to ban plastic bags, because when you recycle plastic bags and you put them into their machine, and I'm sure many of you do this, you take your recycling products out because you think the plastic bag is recyclable. You put your cans or bottles or something in the plastic bag, you tie it up and you throw it into the bin. Those plastic bags muck up their system for hours, and they're very dangerous for people have to go to extract from the things that grind these things up. So people in the community and even vendors want to start using products other than plastic because it does cost, there is a cost for them, there is a savings for them, and it actually makes the planet better. So if we can get more to a circular economy with the use of industrial hemp, with the reduction of plastic, with the transition from fossil fuels into more renewable fuels, we can have a more circular economy that works for everybody. And so these are just some of the projects that we've done with industrial hemp and regenerative agriculture. That's what our ad hoc committee is doing now. Last year, we had a presentation in January where we had about 15 to 20 vendors there selling different products, and also 5 different speakers coming in. Steve Groff, who's pictured here, they call him Cover Crop Steve because he talks about cover crops and regenerative agriculture, which is something really important that we're trying to discuss with farmers in the Lehigh Valley, because it's what not only is what's going to help sequester carbon and actually industrial hemp, and that's what this is. This is an industrial hemp product. An industrial hemp, I should say, is different from any other kind of marijuana that you smoke. This is purely for industrial purposes. It has 0.3 or less THC in it, and THC is what people, it's the psychotropic portion of the cannabis that gets people high. But you're not gonna get high off of a plastic bottle or a product made of hemp. And hemp is one of the strongest products. It used to be used to make rope. We used to have hemp all around here. And in Kentucky, it's one of their cash crops, such that it is replacing tobacco and cotton. And that's how important hemp could be to our economy here, if we could get more people to grow it, larger farms. And they're doing it in Pennsylvania, mainly in Lancaster. And oddly, the Amish people love hemp. They love growing it because it grows like a weed and it's very easy to take care of. So the many uses of hemp plants, they have 50,000 different uses. You could use the fiber, you could use the stalk, the roots, the leaves. You could create oil, seeds. You can make food products with it. You could make, one thing that they're making out of it, which is very interesting, is batteries for renewable energy for cars and also for solar panels. So this is a plant that can be used in so many different ways. It's kind of amazing that we outlawed it and just 80 years ago said, pull up all your plants because we're not growing this anymore. So there are actually 4 farms in Northampton County that are growing hemp right now. And I've talked to most of these people. They've been to our ad hoc meetings. They're in touch with Penn State Agriculture to help them with answer questions. Every year you have to get a permit. And part of what we wanted to do as a county is help people, not only educate them, but provide the supply chain that will eventually subsidize this whole entire industry. Because you can have growers, but you need somewhere to sell your product. So you need manufacturing, you need facilities, and that's where Lehigh comes in and the Ben Franklin Institute, because they're designing ways to use industrial hemp. In Allentown, there's actually a building company, Americavra, who is using hemp as a construction material to build walls. It's fireproof, it's water resistant, and it actually is a great insulator. So it's kind of an amazing product. And also, like I said, our ad hoc committee is talking about the 2 different types of farming, conventional and regenerative practices. We have held panels and discussions. If you've seen the movie, oh shoot, what's it called now? Kiss the Ground. We had a panel discussion about that. Maria Rodale, who is actually was part of our discussion. We had people from Australia and from Europe, talking about regenerative farming practices that we could potentially bring here. And Maria Rodale's Rodale Institute is like just a wealth of knowledge about no-till farming, cover crops, and they have an industrial hemp portion there too that they're exploring. So we're working with them in the county to do these things. And also another exciting project that I've been working on is the Bushkill Creek, protecting the Bushkill Creek, because we have to protect our water sources. So there's a company that works along the Bushkill Creek. It's called Bushkill Unisem. They pump 60 million gallons of water into the Bushkill Creek a day from their cement plant to keep it going. When their generators go down, their pumps go down, and when that happens, the Bushkill Creek diminishes or goes dry, killing thousands of fish and microinvertebrates and every other living thing in the water. In the past 21 years, there have been 14 different dewatering events. There have been 2 within the past year, and I think 3 since 2018. And that is what led me to build a coalition of stakeholders to find a solution for this. So Trout Unlimited, the Monocacy Watershed, the Bushkill Creek Watershed Coalition, our Parks and Recreation, Northampton County, and the sinkhole group from that area all came together. And there's a lot of other different groups that came into this. I think there's like 12 or 18 entities, including the different municipalities that affect Stockertown and Tatamy, that came together to organize a think group called the Karst Geology Advisory Council to figure out how we can mitigate these problems. And what we found out is that this is just the tip of the iceberg in this Bushkill Creek. It's sort of like the canary in the cage in the coal mine, right? There's karst geology all over the Lehigh Valley, but in this specific area where they're building homes in Tatamy and Stockertown in this area, they're building $500,000 homes on karst geology. And if you don't know what karst geology is, it's the calcium that is underlying the rock. It has channels in it. And that karst geology, when the water goes through the channels and erodes the calcium, it creates sinkholes. So there are sinkholes that are opening up everywhere. And it's actually not even safe to go fishing on the Bushkill Creek. This picture is taken from, what the heck is her name? Now I can't remember her name. Lucy. I'm going to remember it. But her house is right along this creek. She has had 9 or 10 different sinkholes. And when I was there, her garage was sinking down. There's a whole development that was bought by Bushkill Unisem, and they're pumping tons of cement into the ground all the time to mitigate these sinkholes. And we're lucky in a way that Bushkill has been a good partner in terms of trying to mitigate this, but we need to come up with more sustainable solutions than just pumping concrete into the ground. And that's why we started this Karst Geology Advisory Council, because we realized that this might be a problem here, but it's going to be a problem in other parts of Northampton County as well. So this is that little area. This is the Bushkill Creek, and you can see where the plant is. The quarry is right here. You see this big area. You can see all the farmland around it. And this part of the creek from here to here is the part that dries up. When that dries up, you see Jacobsburg, where the creek is low there. You also see it in Easton. So this has long-reaching effects, and which is another reason why we have to mitigate it. This is the number of sinkholes that have been identified, and this was in 1995. There are exponentially more now. So this is the map that Bushkill gave us. We're trying to find a more up-to-date map, but you can see that right along this corridor, Stockertown, this is where Route 33 is. Where Route 33 is where the Penn East pipeline is co-locating with the Adelphia Gateway pipeline. And it is another reason why we should be vigilant about this pipeline going through, because you do not want a pipe rupturing on karst geology. They had that problem at the Mariner East pipeline down in Chester County, And what happens is you get like the pipe is resting on the ground and then it just collapses. You can have any number of events occur that are catastrophic. And the people who are going to be the first responders are our friends and neighbors who are volunteering at fire companies, EMS workers, things like that. It's not like the pipeline has people on hand just in case there's an accident. So as you can see, all these things are really connected. So I'm trying hard. Results make the difference. That's my thing. I have a vision for the future, and the vision is about sustainability. And I hope that, I don't know how many of you here are actually from Northampton County, but I think you can tell how passionate I am about the environment and how much I want to see our community grow in sustainability and also preservation and conservation. We have conserved almost 80,000 acres of farmland in Northampton County, 219 farms. That's our agricultural security. So when we talk about land development, that's the best way that we're going to stave it off, and make sure that our farms are secure. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I kind of think I said enough, but if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be questions. They just have to start unmuting themselves to ask.
Okay,
I
so
have a question.
Yeah, I would make a statement that this is our third in a series of 4 presentations. The 4th presentation will be sometime in the future, but that will be a presentation by me to explain what's going to happen if we don't get renewable energy done, if we don't get the things. I know Tara gave you a lot to think about, but my presentation will explain what's going to happen if we don't get the things done that she's talking about.